Williamson County meet the alderman candidates evening. I am June Bond, head of the Williamson County League of Women Voters Steering Committee. We are in the process of forming a Williamson County chapter with the assistance of the Nashville League of Women Voters and the League of Women Voters of Tennessee. We are a nonpartisan volunteer organization that promotes engaged, informed, and active participation in government. Sponsors for tonight's meeting with our alderman candidates are Franklin City, for whom we are grateful to for providing this facility, and to Melissa Ryerson, Manager of Communications, and her staff, Robert Mott and Austin Davenport. The Williamson Herald newspaper, with thanks to publisher Derby Jones, and Tom Lawrence of WAKM Radio, who we thank for moderating the candidate forum this evening. Each candidate will have 3 minutes for opening remarks, 1 minute for answering questions from the list they have received. Our timer is Peg McCree, who will be holding up countdown cards. Please do not applaud or cheer, but hold applause to the end of the program. Now I turn it over to Tom.
Thank you, ma'am. You will know when we're done, there will be another lady stand right at that lectern, and that means it's time to stop, and we may not start on schedule, but we will stop on schedule. Let's see here. Let's start from the right and go to the left, physically speaking, not politically speaking. Beverly Berger is the incumbent First Ward Alderman. She is unopposed. And ma'am, you have 3 minutes to introduce yourself and say whatever you want to say.
Thank you, Tom. Thank you for the opportunity tonight. This is the first time in a debate I've not come prepared with an opening statement. So I'm going to speak just from my heart, no notes tonight. I moved here in 2003, and in 2005 ran for office. But I'd been coming to Franklin for years, and I had been watching it develop for years. And one time we drove in here with the kids from Alabama for a soccer game, and I said, "What happened to downtown? It's a miracle." And from that day on, Franklin has just been a shining star. And so we had an opportunity one day to move here, and we were thrilled. And my father always told me, when you are in a community, wherever you are, become involved. Be a part of the solutions, not part of the problems. And my father and I are very much alike, and I wish he were here today to see my service to the city, because he would be so happy, because he was always involved in his community. And so that day I decided, after meeting an alderman, decided to pull a petition and run. And I ran for office, and I worked myself down to 2 pairs of shoes of pretty well walking. And I met some remarkable people. And the more I met these remarkable people, I wanted to be a part of the solution, not the problem. So I ran for office, and I've been serving 16 years, and it's been a great honor to serve. I've been involved in many aspects of the city, but it's also given me a great opportunity to serve others in many ways because of being able to get to know people and being in leadership areas and leadership teams. And that gives you a great responsibility once you're elected to use your office for good, to be involved much more in the community with people in different ways. So it's an honor again to run. It's the first time I've ever run without being opposed. And I'm thankful for that because it's been a very, very busy summer for us. My husband and I, Ken is in the audience tonight. We have 3 wonderful sons and grandchildren and daughter-in-laws, and they threw us a 50th wedding anniversary party this summer. And I've been very honored with my family being supportive, my husband being supportive. You have to have support from your family. But most of all, I want to thank the City of Franklin, the citizens of Ward 1, and it's an honor to be able to serve you.
Mike Vaughn is running in Ward 2, right?
That's correct, Tom.
The clock is ticking.
Very good. So I have a prepared statement. It's on the handout that I'm putting on doors throughout Ward 2. And so I'll read from that and then ad lib a little bit on top of that. So I'm an 8th generation Tennessean. I have 31 years of experience in leadership positions around the world. I'm currently the CEO and an investor in Adore Life Sciences, which is a research and development company developing products for arthritis treatment in animals and humans. I have an office here in Franklin and in Albany, New York. I'm also the founder of a global management consulting firm that had affiliates in Taiwan, Hong Kong, Malaysia, and China. I'm a subject matter expert for the U.S. government. I recently led last year, before the election, a consortium of pharmaceutical manufacturers plan for reshoring antibiotic manufacturing from China, working with the Tennessee Congressional Delegation and the Assistant to the President and the Director of the Office of Trade and Manufacturing Policy. Previously, I was successfully launched a startup biotech company, a statewide not-for-profit to promote the Tennessee Bicentennial in 1996. I've managed government-funded projects for the Appalachian Regional Commission, Tennessee Valley Authority, and the state of Tennessee. Been married to Joan Eskew from Ripley, Tennessee since 1983. We have 2 children and a grandson. I'm a graduate of the University of Tennessee at Martin with a bachelor's degree in science, and I'm an active member of Christ Community Church in Franklin. If you had asked me 6 months ago if I was going to run for alderman for Ward 2, I would have thought you were crazy. But I ran 4 years ago and lost by 22 votes in a tough election. And I ran because I was encouraged to run by former State Representative Charles Sargent. Charles is deceased and was a good friend, and saw Nancy recently, and it was good to catch up with her and what she was doing, and she encouraged me to run again. So I'm running again, and this time I'm running for the people of Ward 2. That's my focus. I'm 65 years old, I'm semi-retired with my company, and I have the time and commitment and energy to put forth to represent the people of Ward 2. And I am ready to discuss the issues that are facing us today. So thank you very much for this opportunity.
Tina Perrette from the 4th Ward,
Ward 2.
Ward 2. Your email address threw me off.
Okay.
All right.
Very good. Well, good evening, everyone. Thank you so much to the League of Women Voters for sponsoring this and arranging this. And just to tell you a little bit about myself, I am Tennessee raised as well, from Knoxville, and have been back in my home state since 2001. In 2013, I married my husband, Mark Perrette, and moved to Franklin to become stepmother to his 2 children. And I would say Franklin has played a critical role in the bonding of our family, and that's where my memories of the city began. When Mark and I were courting, we were always looking for opportunities to do things with the children, just so we could all get to know each other and just be in an environment where everyone was having fun. And Franklin does a great job of encouraging families to get out and do things together that help knit them together. So as to why I'm running for alderman, in 2016, I felt led to prepare myself for leadership at a local role, leadership in a local role. And ever since then, I have been attending a lot of Franklin-related gatherings. And in 2019, my realtor peers, I've been a realtor since 2004 in the Middle Tennessee area, my realtor peers nominated me to chair the Government Affairs Committee at the Williamson County Association of Realtors. And so when Dana McClendon announced that he was not seeking re-election, several people who know me through my active involvement in the community and have seen me out at all these events got together and approached me and asked me to consider running. So I took a weekend to think about it, and I said, you know what? I think I'm ready to do that. And I'm running for alderman to bring all that I have to the table. My work ethic, my people skills, my leadership experience, and a network of contacts I've spent the last 2 decades building in the Middle Tennessee area. I want to keep Franklin a safe and thriving community where you, your friends, your family, all of us can live a good life. Thank you for having me.
From the 2nd Ward, Angela Hubbard.
Thank you for having me today. I fell in love with Franklin in the early 90s. I moved here right out of college, LSU. Sorry for all the Tennessee people, but I fell in love with Franklin. I knew then I would probably end up here, if not staying here. I met a gentleman and started flying here in Franklin, and I only left Franklin then to pursue my flying career. I moved back here with my daughter, who is a senior at Renaissance, in 2015 so I could live near family. And family is very important to me and 100% my support system. I'm running for alderman because back in the early 90s, it was so apparent that Franklin had a plan. It was impressive, their plan. I'm running because I want to be a part of that plan. It's with all of the growth that we are having, Franklin is not going to slow down. The questions I have and I would love to address as a alderman is, can we sustain this growth in a matter that is logical? Do we have all of the road system in place? And our sewer system is lacking. The flooding is not about to stop anytime soon. So these are things that I would like to address, and I'm hoping that as a alderman, I can meet. My best advice I've been given is to tap into the wealth of knowledge that we have here, private, public, all of the above, and bring everyone to the table, to these tables, and that will sustain us. Thank you. That's calling me.
That's convenient.
That's my family calling me. We got you, and
Your time is up. Matt Brown.
Hello, sir.
Second Ward. Hello, sir.
Good evening, everybody. I am a small business owner, a past CEO, a community volunteer, a veteran of the Army National Guard, the proud parent of 3 fantastic kids, and the husband to 1 amazing wife. I have always shown my gratitude through service, from the time I enlisted in the Army when I was 17 to the numerous nonprofits that I give my time and resource to today in Franklin, from the African American Heritage Society, Unite Williamson, Franklin Tomorrow, and the Friends of Franklin Parks, to name a few. We are blessed to live in this wonderful city. Our friends, our neighbors, our trails, our river, our shops, our restaurants, our fantastic history, our full heritage, but most importantly, a community that's been built on values, vision, and heart. For all of this, I have much gratitude and therefore feel very called to serve this community and serve Ward 2. I've had the chance to get deeply involved in this community, and I've seen its spirit firsthand, which is why I'm raising my hand to try to fight and preserve and protect it. We're at a critical tipping point in Franklin. With growth comes change, and with change comes the risk of losing the soul of Franklin and what makes us a great all-American city, a place to live, work, and visit. My priorities are smart, controlled growth, with a focus on preserving the aesthetic and the daily enjoyment of our community, while giving our current infrastructure projects a chance to catch up, to work the Envision Franklin plan, and to have the courage to say no to modifications that don't serve our citizens or enhance our resident quality of life. Second, I support small business, nonprofits, and those that keep us safe. The economic vitality and unique charm that brings millions of visitors to Franklin didn't and doesn't happen by chance. Let's support our local small businesses that attract tourism dollars and provide a vast majority of the employment in the city. Let's support our nonprofits that at the core of our community bring the values and establish the values of our community. And importantly, let's fully support those that protect us, our police and our fire departments. Finally, let's continue to enhance resident quality of life. Further development of our trails and walkways for resident connectivity, pedestrian wellness and convenience. And let's find ways to make the Harpeth an asset for our community. And finally, let's protect and champion Franklin's values: faith, family, charity, hospitality, and most importantly, loving our neighbors. Keep this place what it's been, shaped through generations of hard work, smart decisions, and the right motivations. I research public opinion for a living. As I walk the neighborhoods, I will tell you these are the things that matter to our residents. If they matter to you, I'd ask for your support, and most importantly, I'm asking for your vote. Thank you.
Elizabeth Wanzak is running in the 4th Ward. She has been here before, like Mike Vaughn. She was a candidate 4 years ago. Elizabeth?
Thank you so much, Tom, and thank you so much to the League of Women Voters for having this evening. My name is Elizabeth Downing Wanzak. I am a 12-year resident of Franklin. I moved to Tennessee first in 2005 to go to college at the University of the South, where I majored in political science. But I had been commuting back and forth to Nashville from Texas, Houston, I grew up there, for music, and spent many, many years in all of the recording studios, many of which are now no longer there on Music Row. I met my husband, Nick, while I was at Sewanee, and we moved to Franklin in 2009 in the height of the recession when there were houses galore but no jobs. And 6 weeks after we got married, Nick deployed for his second tour to Iraq, and I moved into our beautiful home here in Ward 4 in the Spencer Hall neighborhood, where we've been ever since. And because I could not find a job, and I am a political science nerd, I started watching all of the closed circuit TV meetings for the city of Franklin and the county, and got really interested in getting involved in local government. Public service runs in my blood. It is the crux of my family's DNA, and I firmly believe that we are all bettered when we as citizens get involved in local government. I am, as a 12-year resident of Franklin, have seen lots of changes here. My platform is smart growth, fiscal responsibility, and community involvement. For smart growth, I'm particularly wanting to make sure that we are making smart decisions as we grow. Growth brings change, and we need good stewardship to make sure we are incorporating our past harmoniously into our future. As a resident from Houston, I am familiar with flooding, and it has been heartbreaking to see the impact of flooding in our area and here locally, both in 2010 and recently in March, and my heart goes out to those who've been affected in Humphreys County as well as the Gulf Coast. Fiscal responsibility is extremely important to me, and I want to make sure that we are continuing to steward our resources, and particularly making sure that we are budgeting for what I consider the backbone of our community, making sure that we are providing workforce attainable housing and providing full budgetary support for our first responders. And finally, community involvement. Again, at the crux of my family's and my personal ethos is a devotion to faith and community. And if we are wanting to make sure that we preserve Franklin as a place for all of us to be involved, to be continually the place that we are all proud of, and that where we are truly blessed to call home. This is where I am honored to be raising my 5-year-old daughter and my 2-year-old son. I still have moments where I tickle, like pinch myself that I get to call this home, and it is an honor to be here this evening. Thank you.
Patrick Baggett from the 4th Ward.
Thank you, Tom. Appreciate that. Thank you, League of Women Voters, for having us here. I am excited because my opponent and I, Elizabeth, we both are parents of young children, and my 3 future League of Women Voters are at home. I have 3 daughters, 7, 5, and 2. Married Amy Clayton Baggett, who is a Franklin native, grew up here in Franklin. And so I'm blessed to now call this place home. And growing up in North Alabama, where I'm from, we have fantastic quality of life culture, but we didn't have the economic engine that we have here at Franklin. And we have a beautiful town, a place where we can enjoy the work that we do, enjoy the people, our neighbors. We can invest in things like historic preservation and invest in things. We have the luxury, frankly, of being able to talk about things like Envision Franklin and how we want to grow, when so many places in this country do not have that luxury. And the impetus of me deciding to run was when I understood that there was going to be some turnover, frankly, in the Board of Mayor and Aldermen. And as I looked around and spoke with my wife, Amy, about the possibility of running, it became clear and evident as folks encouraged me to step forward. And why? It's because of the 10 plus 11 years now leadership that I've had in the city. I've worked and led some of the county's oldest nonprofits, the civic organizations like the Franklin Noon Rotary, board president of Franklin Tomorrow, and work with Battlefield Preservation with Franklin's Charge. Again, with just great news with the 264 Natchez Merrill Williams property that has just been funded, was involved with that committee. This place is special. I'm so glad to hear that others feel that their faith is important to why they're serving, as it is, because it is with me. That is a central part of why I have sought to serve in this community. Helping one's neighbor or caring for one's neighbor is central to my faith, and I believe that this is a role that's going to allow me to do that. I'm excited about those that are supporting me. It's humbling, as I'm sure many up here can attest. I'm not a politician. I'm an insurance professional here in Franklin, but it's so humbling to see folks get involved and energetic about their local races, because this is where the rubber hits the road, and this is where your life is impacted. And I want to be the voice up here for all of Franklin in Ward 4. And all of Franklin, frankly, that you have a trusted voice, a voice that is going to listen and speak for you. I'm excited, too, to hear today that the public safety folks at the Franklin Firefighters Association have endorsed me, and that was just it was fantastic for me to hear that news. I appreciate everyone's support, and I see my time is up now, but I would encourage you, like others, to please get out and vote. It is vitally important for the city that we all participate in this local election. Thank you.
We have 7 questions. We're not going to get to them all, just to be honest with you. We will rotate. Ms. Berger went first. Mr. Vaughn will go first now. Everybody will have 60 seconds to answer this question. If elected, you will be involved in the City of Franklin's future plans, Envision Franklin and Connect Franklin, recommend a way for the city to develop. How do these plans match up with your vision of Franklin's future, Mr. Vaughn?
Well, first of all, I think that you've got to address the urban growth boundary, which is something that I guess the state legislature has some input to. But, Franklin in Ward 2, especially where I'm focused, you've got opportunities for the growth to expand out Del Rio Pike till you notice some of those farms that are out there around to the loop by Mac Hatcher. And you've got a little opportunity for growth to take place up Franklin Road to the west. But past that, there's not a lot of growth opportunities for Ward 2. So just looking at Ward 2's, the impact on Ward 2, I just want to make sure that when these two plans interact with one another, that we are mindful of the traffic and the congestion and all of the inconveniences that are currently impacting the residents of Ward 2.
In less than 60 seconds, I thank you. Tina Perret?
Yes. So I have great respect for the time and the care and expertise that were employed in creating these guiding documents. I think it's these kind of things that great cities do to thoughtfully shape their future. In just thinking of the city overall, when I'm door knocking, talking to residents of Ward 2 and just people from all parts of Franklin, their concerns, Mike's right, it's all about infrastructure. Can it keep up with the expanding number of rooftops and retail that we attract to the city due to our great quality of life? So based on that, and having studied a little bit in the Envision Franklin plan, I'm an advocate of directing density for development in the areas where the existing and future planned infrastructure will support it, which the Envision Franklin plan favors the I-65 corridor. As to connectivity, another thing that always comes up when I'm knocking doors is, what can I do to help relieve traffic? Well, for me, connectivity is a great way to reduce traffic flow on the roads that are already crowded.
Thank you. Angela Hubbard.
My role in the Envision Franklin and Connect Franklin, the two go hand in hand. The Envision Franklin is a great concept. I think we should narrow it down to specifics, meaning we can grow if there are X amount of roads available for said growth. And a way to connect all of Franklin, the density has to be ready for, the infrastructure has to be ready for the density. And the only way to help with any of that is some sort of system. I honestly, I feel like we've already outgrown Mac Hatcher and it is not even open. So we need specific plans.
Matt Brown.
I touched on this a bit in my opening, but I do believe that a lot of time and resources have gone in to creating a vision for our city through Envision Franklin. I think we need to stick with the plan. I think importantly for all of those involved, from landowners to developers to residents, we need to bring clarity where there's inconsistency in that plan and have the courage also to say no to modifications that don't serve our city. Relative to Connect Franklin, as a member of the Franklin Trails Committee, as part of Friends of Franklin Parks, as somebody who commutes to work via the trails to downtown and somebody who uses it for recreation, I am in absolute full support of more connectivity and more trails for our residents, for connectivity and for enjoyment.
Elizabeth Wanzek.
I actually really love what Envision Franklin proposes, but one of the things that has that I hear consistently as I knock on doors that I do not believe we're doing enough is sticking to it. We seem to be making lots of amendments. And I told a voter recently, I have a 5 and 2-year-old. I am absolutely able to say no under duress. And no, we need to be focused on actually giving it a chance to shine. This is a proposal that was worked on and lots of time and input was put into it, and we need to be focused there. Connect Franklin focuses on our major thoroughfares and infrastructure developments, and the biggest thing I see as far as my platform that relates to that is making sure that we are focusing on moving up short-term proposed projects, and particularly Mac Hatcher. We are about to open a new extension. We need to finish the full loop. And for Ward 4 particularly, that is one of the biggest things we're going to do to help impact congestion and support the growth.
Patrick Baggett.
So Envision Franklin is a guiding document. It was created in 2017, community input. A lot of folks that I knock on door, they haven't lived here since 2017. And so it was designed to be refreshed this year. There have been 22 total amendments requested. There have been 13 that have passed, 7 failed, and 2 withdrawn. And most of those have happened in the last couple of years. So the first couple of years, there were no amendments, very few made. And so to me, like any good plan, it needs updated. And to think that the guiding document that we set now is going to be there for the next 10, 15 years, it's not. Things change, and so we must adapt with them. Envision Franklin, when you hear citizens who are upset with something, which they have been, 2 recent projects. Citizens have been upset with the plan Envision Franklin, the density allowed in it. And then when you have developers that are also upset with some aspects of it, there are things, in my opinion, that we need to, it's a plan, but plans change, and we need to have citizen input and a really concerted effort to make sure that document is right for the next 5 years. And I think in 2022, if I'm elected, I'll lead that charge.
Beverly Berger.
Well, I contributed to Envision Franklin and the connectivity plan. I think as we review these plans coming up, we're in the process right now with thoroughfare plan right now, and then the connection plan and the Envision Franklin this coming year. We need to make sure that density and mixed use are approved around sufficient infrastructure and where developers could actually easily put that infrastructure where it can actually go, around networks of roads, sewer, utilities. We also need to remember, as Patrick brought up, this is a plan, it is a guide. This is not law, it is not an ordinance. It is a planning guide that can be upheld or not upheld by the Planning Commission and the Board of Mayor and Aldermen for good reason. Not all areas, not all land, not all sections of town are made equal. And sometimes things come up and we go, wow, we need to rethink that. That's in the plan. Does that mean that we stop dead and don't consider changing something? No. There's a lot more I can say, but it's time to stop, so I'll leave it there.
Question number 2. And Tina Perrette will be the first answerer. Is affordable housing a public or private responsibility? If you believe it is private, what steps can government take to encourage developers to provide it? In either case, public or private, is there a role for annexation?
So I believe housing production belongs in the private sector. And as these projects are proposed to the Board of Mayor and Aldermen, one question that is rarely asked is, what will the price points be for these homes? As an alderman, that would be one of my standard questions for developers to answer as early on as possible for their proposals. And I would also add, would you be willing to incorporate any homes that will be affordable to those who make 80% or less of the median income? Berry Farms is a great example of this, with homes that have sold in the last few years in the low 300s. According to Fannie Mae, the average median income for Williamson County is around $82,000 per household. 80% of that is about $65,000. For buyers with $20,000 to put down and willing to spend up to 35% of their income on a home, they could afford something in the range of $320,000 to $350,000. You can have a townhome or condo that's part of a higher-end development like Berry Farms, but with a smaller footprint, and it's going to be a very nice starter home for someone.
Angela Hubbard, what say you?
I think it is a combination of the two. Private sector absolutely has to lead. As the board decides who can build, I think it's the responsibility of the board, and that is their role, to make sure there is affordability and sustainability in every project that is approved.
Matt Brown.
Yes, sir. I do believe this is primarily a privately led initiative. In the current market with high home values and building material costs, it's going to be challenging to bring forth attainable housing options without the collaboration and collective effort of businesses, utilities, nonprofits, landowners, developers, and builders. The second half of the equation is, once we do find the opportunity and create the opportunity for attainable housing, does it stay attainable housing? And we've got examples in this city where we've not done a good job of maintaining and keeping that price point, just given the way that market values increase.
Elizabeth Wanzak.
I have served on the Housing Commission since 2017 and had the honor to chair the Housing Commission for 2 years. And I firmly believe the answer to this is both. It's a public-private partnership approach. And one of the first things I would love to see is the pilot program, the incentive program that was passed by BOMA this past February expanded. That's currently had $1 million put forward for it to help spur the building of workforce attainable housing through both nonprofit development as well as private for commercial profit development. And I think we need to lobby the state legislature to remove the inclusionary zoning ban. The city of Franklin had a very good inclusionary zoning ordinance that is no longer able to be done. As far as annexation, that is now totally dependent upon the property owners to request. Whereas before it was a tool that the city could use, such as for the West Haven development, where they were able to design an incredible neighborhood that had a variety of houses and different living options at different price points. So that is another opportunity potentially to discuss with the state legislature.
Patrick Beggett.
You know, this is a question that we get asked, it seems like, on almost every survey. And I think our community has a problem defining affordable housing. We have lots of Indians and not a lot of chiefs, okay? We need a strategy as a city. We need a city-wide strategy on defining what we're after. There's certain groups that are going for, and they call it affordable housing, but it might be low-income housing, it might be attainable workforce. There are these official definitions out there, but when we see proposals come up here that are piecemealed, and we're all talking about different things. So I would love to see the city of Franklin take a leadership role, not as the developer, but let us set a strategy as a city on how we're going to accomplish certain goals with outcomes that do impact the public sector. The city's not going to get in the development business of affordable housing. But what we can do is lead in educating the citizenry on what the economic issues are surrounding the affordable housing issue we have, and that is housing at every price point. And we as a city can say, let's get these private entities together, nonprofits and such, and let's form a strategy so we can solve some of the real problems instead of just piecemealing a strategy together.
Ms. Berger.
I believe government should not be in the affordable housing business, but I do believe government can be helpful in cutting red tape, reducing some fees, and possibly doing some other non-monetary incentives. The community is going to have to take the initiative here. I've been a proponent of setting of endowments, but it takes sweat equity. It's going to take nonprofits, of the affordable housing boards who want this, who want to come together, one voice, partnering with our community. Under the private sector and nonprofit community, until they take this on together, it's probably not going to happen. And this is a very, very giving community. Let me give you an example. The Heritage Foundation approached the Franklin City government when they wanted to save the Franklin Theater, a landmark place. Government said, no, we're not going to be a part of that. It's a private endeavor. But government can help. It can be supportive. We streamlined different things. We did timely inspections. We might have even reduced some fees. But the bottom line here was some elected officials jumped in. We all jumped in and lent our hand to this. But guess what? They were able to raise $8 million in a time of recession. So my point is here, Franklin is the most giving community that I've ever lived in. But I believe it's missing in action on this front.
Mike Vaughn.
Well, in this question, I think government does have a role to set policy. First thing that I hear about when people discuss affordable housing is, who is it for? So you have to define eligibility. Are you trying to keep and retain firemen, policemen, teachers, even restaurant workers downtown that have to come here and work? So one creative idea would be to take the sales tax or some other revenue sources that the city generates to create a subsidy pool of sorts to supplement incomes or rent subsidies of sorts for that policy that's created by the government, but let it be led by the private developers who could possibly also have impact fees waived. So I think there's a role for both the government to set policy and for private sector to, with their market forces, to make that housing available.
We have 20 minutes to go. And we're starting the third question. Question 3 to be answered first by Angela Hubbard. The recent Franklin Tomorrow Civic Survey shows a desire for more diversity in city leadership and inclusion in community participation. What kinds of measures or activities can you suggest to achieve this goal?
I think as leaders of the city, we should be diverse. A single-minded community is simply that. It cannot succeed. As leaders, it's not always easy to hear everyone's ideas, especially if they differ from the ones that I have, but that is where brilliance comes from. Franklin has so many talented people. I think we should, as leaders, reach out to our clergy in the city, different diverse groups, bring them in to the table and make decisions.
Matt Brown.
You know, organizations like Franklin Tomorrow are game changers in Franklin. I think they take the conversation out to the community. They work really hard. They have a heart for engaging the community. I think even Eric's 3 Things to Know is pretty fun, whether you love it or not. I think he does a great job with those. I think we need to find more non-traditional ways, this is the marketer in me, to engage people. The reality is that meetings are a hardship for people with work and family responsibilities, so we need to find ways to engage people in the community and take discussions to them. The other thing that I'll say is that I think if we really want to bring diverse leadership into the government, into the city, we need to, and this is the business leader in me, we need to work on mentorship. We need to work on succession planning like any great organization would. Let's identify great civic-minded leaders in our community and encourage them and guide them through a journey for community service.
Elizabeth Wanzak.
The third part of my platform is community involvement and wanting to make sure that we emphasize how Franklin is a place for all. And I think Franklin does an incredible job on really making that, whether it's been our embrace of the Fuller story, as Patrick said a few minutes ago, the excitement around the purchase of the Merrill Williams house. It was fantastic to see Juneteenth on the square this year. I would love to see more of our vibrant and diverse community get involved. We have a very large South Asian population. I would love to have a Diwali festival in November when that time of year comes around. We had Franklin Pride, and Mayor Moore made a proclamation for that this summer. All of that is showing the fabric of this community that is diverse and to be celebrated, and I think we should continue in that mission.
Patrick Baggett.
You know, this is after 2020, I don't know of anyone in this country that didn't sit down and think about their experience with race or and various diversity issues. You know, in my experience, I learn the most when I sit across the table from someone that's different than me, and I learn from them, whether that be political views, that be their economic background, their upbringing, where their country of origin, and that only enriches me as a person, and it can only enrich this city if we prioritize those kinds of personal interactions and those friendships, and doing that throughout the community. And the city can play a role in that, and they have through the Fuller story that Elizabeth mentioned. What a beautiful example of the city with a Civil War history coming together and telling a fuller story of the Battle of Franklin and the Civil War from the African American perspective. And the city should be encouraging and coming alongside organizations privately to do this as they have done. But the survey, as it says, we can do more.
Bev Berger?
Well, you can't force people to be engaged, but, and it requires a person to act. When people find barriers, they should seek out help. We're here to help. Elected officials, City Hall, your churches, your community. People are welcoming and helpful here. Our government already has Citizens Police Academy, Citizens Government Academy. We have things like Sister Cities, Franklin Tomorrow. Every avenue you look around, you can be engaged. But Matt brought up something that I have often thought about many times, and I try to practice, is mentorship. One of the last things that we have is leaders and people in this community who are already engaged, and they have an opportunity here. They can be, we can be more open and inclusive and vibrant community how? If we reach out, we observe people with gifts and talents and good character who love community, who love freedom, who love liberty, who have a heart to serve. And then you go out of your way. You go out of your way to get these people involved and get them engaged. And sometimes that means even helping them financially to run for office or do something else. But you can see these opportunities. So I would say invest your time, your energy, and even sometimes, yes, your money to help build our future leaders. If we want a more open, a more inclusive and vibrant community, invest in people.
Mike Vaughn?
Well, when I was thinking about the question itself, diversity and inclusion, it made me think about which groups are not at the table. And so one obvious group that's not at the table in most anything you see in Franklin is the senior community. Once you reach 50, and I'm not including 50 to 60 as a senior, but you start to encounter age discrimination, and you start to encounter the real forces of the employment workforce looking at people that are too expensive to keep on the payroll. So when you think about the senior community, the silver community that's out there, they're not at this table. Nobody's having a discussion about the senior interest and the senior needs and getting the seniors involved. They're absent from the table. So I'm all for inclusion, but I want the groups that may be the largest unrepresented group in Franklin to be at the table.
Tina Perret?
When I look at the 14 candidates that are running for the Board of Mayor and Aldermen this cycle, I do see a wide variety of people across many categories. All of us feeling equally confident in believing that we represent Franklin. So I think that shows that we are a city that is open and welcoming to anyone seeking to serve the public. That said, to me, the most important ingredient for someone going into a leadership role is that they have a fire in their belly to solve problems and serve people. What the city does have a responsibility to do is create opportunity, which they've already put in place with programs like the Citizens Government Academy. As an alderman, I would actually look to expand that opportunity and include a version of something I attended a few years ago, which was a seminar on how to run for office that was hosted by the Williamson County Association of Realtors and is a part of the reason that I'm sitting here today. Lastly, I think it's important to lead by example. So as a future alderman, I would be eager to make time for and meet with anyone interested in running for office to help them plug into some of the helpful resources I have used to run my campaign.
How many of you planned on answering these questions tonight? You all had the questions,
Yep.
right?
Yes, sir.
You probably looked at question 6, number 7. Oh, they'll never get that far down. This is a curveball. We're going to go to question number 6.
I was really hoping you would let me kick off the wastewater treatment question.
Well, I'm on Main Street.
Like,
Let's
I gotta
do
tell you,
Main Street.
I was just begging for that tonight. Thanks, Tom. Thanks.
Could we just have some?
Go ahead.
That's a legitimate point.
How about if
That's a
some people wanna
legitimate
answer?
point. Next time, be prepared.
I have a better idea, Tom.
Who doesn't want to talk about sewage? Question number 4.
Can have hands.
Will the ongoing water reclamation project adequately provide for future development? And according to my records, Matt Brown gets to answer first.
Yeah, good, thank you. You're on my Christmas card list. Thank you.
Sewer.
Sewer. No, you know what, actually, it is actually an important topic. As I understand it, the project that we currently have underway that is due to complete in 2022 only accommodates and only has production for the units that have been approved but not yet built in our community. So any new approved units would actually be beyond this capacity. And so this goes back to my original statements in the beginning of this conversation when I talked about my priorities. This is why controlled growth and smart growth is critically important, because we keep putting in infrastructure, and before we even have a chance to actually enjoy it, enjoy wastewater, enjoy it and let it work effectively, we begin expanding it beyond its ability and its use.
Elizabeth?
That is my understanding as well, that the city is currently taking a study to potentially expand what was due to be completed in 2022 by an additional 50% capacity. When it is built out, we will have the ability to have 16 million gallons per day. Apparently, that is not going to be enough once we plan out beyond the development we've already planned for. We need to make sure that we're growing in a way that can actually support the growth we have. And some of that will be potentially as the city and the county undergoes its discussion with the urban growth boundary, maybe making some adjustments into places where that is, if there isn't a need there for that growth. But this does concern me because we've already basically accounted for every single gallon that we're going to have, and yet we know we are not done growing.
Patrick?
So I guess the answer has been established of the question, which is that it doesn't facilitate future growth. But there is a long-range plan for the city that does have plans for future capacity. Whether or not, again, going back to the growth issue is whether or not we should grow or it has to be taken into account, right? When we're looking at deals, when we're looking at the urban growth boundary, when we're looking at Envision Franklin, how does that affect what we have? And how will that affect from a cost standpoint and location standpoint and quality of the water, the river, and that we enjoy, that is a different river than it was 30 years ago now? How does what we do affect that natural resource? And so it's imperative that we look at all of the impacts. I appreciate the question, but I think the issue isn't the wastewater plant. The issue is how do we handle the growth? And then support it in a way that's healthy for the river, but healthy also for the community.
Mrs. Berger?
Well, we do have some acreage in southeast Franklin where we plan to expand our water treatment facility there as well for the future. So there are plans, Patrick, you're absolutely right about that. I can say a lot of things, but I also would like to focus on the investment that we've made. We made a really great investment as far as the system that we chose as well. It's a thermohydrolysis system. And one of the things that we'll get from that system is we used to haul off sludge all the time, pay for that, and now we're able to treat that right on site. We're able to dry that out, and guess what? It gives us a Class A biosolids. And why is that so fantastic? Because we're able to take that and legally use that in our farms, our fertilizer. We're going to use it on our parks. We'll be able to use it there. And we can even sell it to the public. So that's one aspect of that a lot of people don't talk about. I thought was well worth mentioning tonight. But yes, the city does have plans. We will be pursuing that. You can't have the whole enchilada at one time, but we see it, we plan for it, and we bite off each part as needed, and we do plan well for the future.
Mr. Vaughn? Isn't this what got you to run 4 years ago? Was this issue right here?
I tell you what, it's almost like the prerequisite to run for alderman is you have to serve as an HOA president next to the wastewater treatment plant for 4 years, which I did. And with Charles Sargent's help, I engaged the city. The city's doing a better job communicating, but back then, prior to 2017, they didn't bother to tell us that they were gonna put a sludge field next to us and process waste with all kinds of different high-tech equipment that had never been approved. And we got implemented into the design plan odor control, which there needs to be still more odor control. And the stink bomb's still going off over there. But even to correct the design flaws that still exist at the wastewater treatment plant now, I always have a statement, you always want to drink upriver from the cows in the water. So the city may be planning at the Ladd Park facility to do a deep well injection of 4 million gallons a day, or they may be planning to do effluent mix into the water reservoir. The water reservoir intake for the Franklin River is in the middle between where the proposed plan is on the south and up to the north where the current plan is. So we're downstream, so Ward 2, you need somebody in there who knows this issue technically inside and out. And my time's up, but yeah, Tom, that's what got me going.
Tina Perret.
So I think the key word in this question is ongoing. So an ongoing plan is a sign of a city that's preparing for its future. And I'm glad, to have learned recently that we do have additional land that's set aside that the city owns with a second site planned to increase our ability to accommodate more development. But I think it's important as a future alderman that I advocate for getting out in front of that and infrastructure, putting that in place prior to bringing new rooftops in retail.
Angela Hubbard.
The answer is no. As said by everyone else here, I do understand that we have plans, and they are great plans, but we're behind. And we're continuing to grow. So these plans need to be in place prior to growing, as Tina just said. But with the Harbeth in mind, as Patrick pointed out earlier, that is our recreation. I mean, people come here just so we can float down the Harpeth, our canoe, and that needs to be a priority in all of our wastewater.
We have 4 minutes remaining. I do want to go over one question here. Question number 5 has to do with closing Main Street. And if you've been in Franklin long enough, you will remember the first controversy for the Board of Mayor and Aldermen. It was called urban renewal. And urban renewal proposed the closure of Main Street. The city of Franklin said no thank you to Uncle Sam, and you see what we have today. I'm sorry, we're out of time. The other questions, and the one I really wanted to get to, was about incorporating the Franklin Special School District into the Williamson County school system. I think the Williamson County school system has learned in the last few days not to be controversial. But from that standpoint, I want to thank the League of Women Voters for coming up with thought-provoking questions. We will change the order of them next Tuesday evening.
Thank you. This concludes our program. Thank you for coming tonight, and thank you to our candidates. This program can be seen on the City of Franklin Facebook page, on Franklin TV, and on Williamson County TV. Good night.